The Rise and Fall of Gurara Capital. Season 1. Episode 2. The Proud Princess.
The moment I walked into Gurara Capital's Kaduna headquarters, I knew I was going to make some significant changes. I'm Sarah Mark, the CEO's daughter. I returned from Lagos with plans, big plans. I had spent years in Lagos working with some of the top companies, and now I was ready to apply what I had learnt back home. The office was bustling as I made my way through, my eyes scanning the rows of desks, and the employees who were watching me with a mix of curiosity and unease. I could tell they were whispering to each other as I passed. I didn't care. I knew what they were thinking. They saw me as the CEO's daughter, someone who was only here because of her father's position, but they didn't know me, not yet. I had worked hard in Lagos, and I was ready to prove myself. I was here to take Gurara Capital to the next level, and nothing was going to stand in my way. My first stop was the conference room. I had called a meeting with all the department heads. I wanted to make my presence known right away. I walked into the room, and they all stood up, their faces polite but cautious. I took my seat at the head of the table, crossing my legs and smiling at them. "Good morning, everyone," I said, my voice clear and confident. "Thank you for being here. I know my arrival might come as a surprise, but I want you all to know that I'm here to help. I've spent the last few years in Lagos, learning from some of the best in the business, and I think it's time we brought some of those practices here to Gurara Capital." The room was silent, the department heads exchanging glances. I could tell they were unsure of me. I didn't blame them. Change was always difficult, and I was about to propose some major changes. "I've noticed that some of our processes are outdated," I continued, leaning forward. "We need to modernize, to be more efficient. In Lagos, we used software that streamlined our financial reports, and I think we should implement something similar here. I've also noticed that we could improve our client outreach. We need to be more proactive, more aggressive in going after new business." I saw a few of them nodding, but most of them looked hesitant. I frowned, my eyes narrowing slightly. "I know change can be difficult," I said, my voice a little sharper, "but if we want to stay competitive, we need to evolve. We can't keep doing things the same old way just because that's how it's always been done." One of the department heads, a middle-aged man named Mr. Bello, raised his hand.
"Miss Mark, I understand what you're saying, but we've been doing things this way for a long time, and it's worked for us. Our clients are used to a certain way of doing business, and I'm not sure they'd appreciate such drastic changes."
I forced a smile, though I could feel my patience wearing thin. "With all due respect, Mr. Bello, that's exactly the kind of thinking that holds companies back. Just because something has worked in the past doesn't mean it's the best way to do it. We need to be forward-thinking, not stuck in the past." Mr. Bello looked like he wanted to say more, but he hesitated, then nodded. I turned my attention to the rest of the room. "I want everyone to start thinking about how we can improve our processes. I'm open to suggestions, but I want real, actionable ideas, not just excuses for why we can't change." The meeting ended, and I could feel the tension in the room as everyone filed out. I knew they weren't happy, but I didn't care. I was here to make changes, not to be liked. Later that day, I walked through the office, stopping by different desks, asking questions, trying to get a sense of how things worked. Most of the employees were polite, but I could tell they were nervous around me. They answered my questions quickly, their eyes darting away from mine. I could feel their resentment, their reluctance to accept me, but I ignored it. I had a job to do. At one point, I stopped by a desk where a young man was working. He looked up at me, his eyes wide. "Good afternoon, Miss Mark," he said, his voice nervous. "Afternoon," I said, glancing at his computer screen. He was working on a client report, the numbers neatly laid out in a spreadsheet. I frowned. "Why are you doing this manually?" I asked. "We should have software that automates this." The young man hesitated, then spoke. "Well, Miss Mark, I've been thinking, maybe if we updated the way we collect client feedback, it would help us understand their needs better. I think—" I cut him off, waving my hand dismissively. "That's not what I asked. We're talking about efficiency here, not client feedback. Let's focus on what matters, shall we?" The young man nodded, his face flushing. I turned and walked away, my heels clicking on the floor. I didn't have time for suggestions that weren't relevant. I had a vision for this company, and I needed everyone to be on board. As the day went on, I could feel the tension growing. People whispered as I walked by, their eyes avoiding mine. I heard bits of conversations, people complaining about the changes I was proposing, about my attitude. They called me proud, arrogant, too full of myself. I ignored them. They didn't understand what it took to succeed in a place like Lagos. They didn't understand that to move forward, you had to be willing to make tough decisions, to push people out of their comfort zones. But that evening, as I sat in my office, looking out the window at the city below, I couldn't couldn't shake a feeling of unease. I had come here to make changes, to prove myself, but I was starting to wonder if I had underestimated just how difficult it would be. These people were set in their ways, resistant to change. They didn't see what I saw, the potential for growth, for something bigger and better. They were comfortable, and comfort was the enemy of progress. A knock on the door pulled me from my thoughts. It was Mr. Okoro, my father's right-hand man. He stepped into the office, his expression cautious. "Miss Mark, I just wanted to let you know that there's been some concern among the staff about the changes you're proposing," he said. "They're worried that it might be too much, too fast." I frowned. "Mr. Okoro, I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to make this company better. If people can't handle that, then maybe they don't belong here." Mr. Okoro nodded, though I could see the hesitation in his eyes. "Of course, Miss Mark. I just thought you should know." He left the office, and I leaned back in my chair. Maybe I had been too harsh, too quick to dismiss people's concerns, but I couldn't afford to be soft. I had to be strong, to push forward, no matter what. I had seen what complacency could do to a company. In Lagos, I had seen businesses crumble because they refused to adapt, to change, though I couldn't help but wonder if I was making a mistake. If maybe, just maybe, I needed to listen more, to understand the people I was trying to lead. Pride was a powerful thing, and it could drive you to great heights, or lead to your downfall. I wasn't sure which way I was heading yet, but I knew one thing for certain: I couldn't turn back now.